The sun was setting, casting a warm orange glow over the quiet streets as Keanu Reeves stepped out of a small cafe, a red MAGA hat clutched in his hand. He had just bought it from a street vendor, not for any political reason, but because it amused him. He was known for his humble and simple nature, and this was just another random act that made him different from most celebrities. He put the hat on, adjusting it slightly as he continued walking toward his parked motorcycle. The streets were buzzing with life, but few people noticed him until they did. A group of bikers, clad in leather jackets with patches that hinted at some local club, spotted him from across the street. They exchanged glances, their eyes narrowing as they saw the bright red cap on Keanu's head. One of them, a tall, burly man with a thick beard, revved his engine loudly, signaling the others to follow. They sped across the street and surrounded Keanu just as he was about to mount his bike. Keanu stayed calm, his expression unreadable. "Something wrong?" he asked, his voice steady yet soft. The lead biker stepped forward, eyeing him up and down. "You think it's funny wearing that hat around here?" he growled, his voice laced with hostility. Keanu didn't flinch. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, as if genuinely curious about the man's reaction. "It's just a hat," Keanu replied quietly, his tone neutral. "Why does it bother you so much?" The tension in the air was thick, and a small crowd began to gather at a distance, watching the scene unfold. Keanu could feel their eyes on him, but he remained composed. The biker's expression hardened. "In this neighborhood, that hat stands for something we don't support," he said, his voice rising. "Take it off, or we'll make you." Instead of reacting aggressively, Keanu smiled faintly. "You know," he said slowly, "people judge others too quickly these days, based on appearances, symbols, or a few words. But have you ever stopped to ask why someone might wear something like this?" There was a brief pause as his words sank in. Some of the bikers looked at each other, unsure how to respond. Keanu took a step closer, his eyes calm yet piercing. "I didn't wear this hat to make a statement. I wore it because I like the way it looks, that's all. Now, if you want to fight over a hat, go ahead. But maybe, just maybe, you should think about whether it's worth it." The lead biker hesitated, his hand clenched into a fist. There was something about Keanu's voice, calm, steady, and strangely wise, that made him pause. For a moment, it seemed like things might escalate further, but then a voice from the crowd shouted, "Leave him alone! He's not hurting anyone!" Keanu turned slightly toward the crowd, offering a small nod of thanks. He looked back at the bikers, his expression still calm. "Your call," he said simply. What would happen next was anyone's guess, but one thing was certain. Things were about to take an unexpected turn. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. The lead biker looked around, feeling the weight of the crowd's gaze on him. It wasn't just about the hat anymore. It was about pride. He hated backing down, especially in front of his crew. But something about Keanu's calm demeanor made him hesitate. There was no fear in Keanu's eyes, only a quiet strength that was unsettling. He clenched his jaw, stepping forward until he was just inches from Keanu. "You talk a lot for someone who's outnumbered," the biker sneered. "But words won't save you if things get ugly." Keanu remained unfazed, his voice steady as ever. "Violence is easy. Walking away, that takes courage. I'm not here to fight. But if you think beating me over a hat will prove something, go ahead." He shrugged slightly. "Or we could do something better." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some of the bikers exchanged uneasy glances. The tension hung in the air, thick and palpable. Just as it seemed things might spiral out of control, Keanu reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small folded flyer. He handed it to the lead biker, who snatched it with a confused look. "What's this?" the biker grunted. "It's for a charity event," Keanu said. "Motorcycle riders are gathering to raise money for underprivileged kids. I was heading there after this. Thought maybe you'd want to join." The biker stared at the flyer, caught off guard by the unexpected offer. He looked up at Keanu, searching his face for any sign of sarcasm or mockery. There was none, just sincerity. The other bikers leaned in to see what was written on the flyer, curiosity replacing their earlier aggression. For a moment, no one said anything. The silence stretched long enough that it began to feel awkward. Then one of the younger bikers standing near the back cleared his throat. "That Doesn't sound so bad, he said hesitantly. Could be fun. The lead biker shot him a sharp look but didn't say anything. He glanced at Keanu one last time before crumpling the flyer in his hand. You're lucky today, he muttered, stepping back. Let's go, guys. One by one, the bikers revved their engines and began to pull away, though some of them looked back at Keanu with a mix of curiosity and respect. As they sped off, the crowd started to disperse, murmuring among themselves about what had just happened. Keanu watched them go, his expression unreadable, but before the lead biker could disappear completely, he suddenly stopped his bike, turned around and called out, Maybe, we'll see you there. Keanu smiled faintly and gave a small nod. Maybe you will. The biker didn't wait for a reply. He revved his engine one last time and sped off, his crew following close behind. Keanu exhaled slowly, mounting his motorcycle. He looked at the crowd that still lingered, a few of them holding up phones recording everything. Hey, he said with a casual wave, if you're watching this and haven't subscribed yet, do it now. You don't want to miss what happens next. He kicked his bike into gear, the engine roaring to life, and with a final glance at the road ahead, he rode off toward the charity event. Yet something told him this wasn't the last time he'd see those bikers. Little did he know, the real twist was just around the corner. The sun dipped lower on the horizon as Keanu rode along the winding road, his thoughts lingering on the strange encounter. There was something odd about the lead biker's last words, something that hinted at more than just a passing threat or change of heart. Still, Keanu chose to focus on his destination, the charity event at an old warehouse on the outskirts of the city. As he pulled into the lot, he saw dozens of bikers already gathered, their motorcycles lined up neatly in rows. The atmosphere was lively, with the hum of engines blending with the chatter of people. Food stalls were set up along one side, and a stage had been erected where a band was playing upbeat rock music. Families with kids wandered around, enjoying the festive vibe. Keanu parked his bike and walked toward a small group near the entrance. A man in his mid-50s wearing a leather vest covered in patches greeted him warmly. Keanu, glad you made it, he said, clasping Keanu's hand firmly. Wouldn't miss it, Mike, Keanu replied, smiling. Turnout looks great. Yeah, better than we expected, Mike said, glancing around proudly. Every dollar we raise tonight is going to help local schools. The kids need it. He paused, lowering his voice slightly. Oh, and I heard about what happened earlier. You okay? Keanu nodded. Just a misunderstanding. Nothing serious. Before Mike could say more, the low rumble of engines filled the air again. Keanu turned, spotting the same group of bikers from earlier riding into the lot. The crowd grew quieter as they parked their bikes and dismounted, their arrival causing an unspoken tension to ripple through the event. The lead biker, still holding the crumpled flyer in his hand, walked straight toward Keanu. His expression was unreadable, but there was no hostility in his eyes this time. He stopped a few feet away and held out the flyer. You weren't lying, he said gruffly. We thought it was some kind of trick. Keanu took the flyer back without a word, sensing the weight of the moment. The crowd around them watched intently, waiting to see what would happen next. The lead biker shifted uncomfortably before speaking again, this time with less edge in his voice. We've seen too many people use these events for show. Thought you might be one of them. I get that, Keanu said quietly, but this isn't about show. It's about helping people who don't get a fair shot. The biker stared at him for a long moment, then glanced around at the families and kids scattered across the lot. Something in his hardened expression softened slightly. We'll stay, he said finally, his voice steady, and we'll pitch in. A murmur of surprise spread through the crowd, followed by a round of applause. The tension that had hung in the air dissolved as people began welcoming the bikers, offering them food and drinks. Keanu watched as the group blended into the gathering, their earlier hostility replaced by hesitant smiles and nods. Mike approached Keanu again, a look of admiration on his face. I don't know how you do it, man, he said, shaking his head. Turning potential fights into partnerships? It's impressive. Keanu chuckled softly. Sometimes people just need a chance to do the right thing. He glanced toward the bikers, now mingling with the crowd. Besides, life's too short for unnecessary battles. As the evening progressed, something strange began to stir in Keanu's mind. The bikers weren't here by coincidence. There was more to their story, something he couldn't quite put his finger on yet. And as much as he wanted to believe the conflict was over, an unsettling feeling told him that this was far from the end. The real challenge was still ahead, lurking in shadows he hadn't yet noticed. The night was alive with music, laughter, and the hum of motorcycles. But Keanu couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. He kept a close eye on the group of bikers as they mingled, their earlier hostility now replaced by an odd sense of purpose. It wasn't just about helping at the event. There was something else going on beneath the surface. As Keanu grabbed a cup of coffee from one of the stalls, he noticed the lead biker, now standing alone near the edge of the lot, looking uneasy. Keanu took a deep breath and approached him. "Everything okay?" he asked casually, his tone calm. The biker glanced at him, hesitating before answering. "Look, I didn't come here to cause trouble," he said, lowering his voice so only Keanu could hear. "But I think you should know something. There's a guy, powerful, rich, who doesn't like what you're doing." Keanu's expression hardened slightly. "What do you mean?" "Your whole help the people thing. It's not sitting well with some folks who benefit from keeping things the way they are." The biker looked around cautiously, as if expecting someone to be listening. "We got paid to scare you off earlier, but after meeting you, I figured it's not worth it." Keanu's mind raced. He wasn't surprised. Whenever he got involved in something good, there were always those who saw it as a threat. But hearing it confirmed by someone who had been sent to intimidate him made it more real. "Who paid you?" Keanu asked quietly. The biker shook his head. "I don't know his name, but he's got influence, and he's not done yet." Before Keanu could press further, a loud commotion erupted near the main stage. Several large men dressed in dark clothing were making their way toward the center of the event, pushing people aside as they went. They didn't look like ordinary attendees. They moved with purpose, like they were here on a mission. Keanu's eyes narrowed. "Stay here," he told the biker before walking toward the stage. As he got closer, one of the men pulled out a bullhorn and began shouting, "This so-called charity event is a scam. Don't be fooled by celebrities trying to play hero." His voice boomed over the crowd, causing confusion and unrest. People began murmuring nervously, unsure what was happening. Keanu climbed onto the stage, grabbing a microphone. "Hey!" he called out, his voice cutting through the noise. "Everyone, listen up!" The crowd fell silent, turning their attention to him. Keanu locked eyes with the man holding the bullhorn. "If you've got something to say it. But don't disrupt something that's here to help kids." The man sneered, stepping forward. "Help kids? This is just a PR stunt for you. You think we don't see through it?" Keanu didn't flinch. "Believe what you want. But if anyone here doubts what this event stands for, they're free to leave." He turned to the crowd. "No one's forcing anyone to stay. This is about community, about standing up for each other. If that bothers some people, that's on them, not us." The tension hung thick in the air. For a moment it seemed like things could spiral out of control. But then, one by one, people began clapping. The applause grew louder until it became a roar of support. The men in dark clothing exchanged uneasy glances before retreating into the shadows. The crowd's energy had turned against them, and they knew they had lost this round. As they disappeared, Keanu turned back to the microphone. "Thanks for sticking together," he said, his voice steady but warm. "And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We've got more work to do." The event continued without further incident, but Keanu knew this was just the beginning. Whoever had sent those men wouldn't stop here. There was a bigger game at play, and he was now caught in the middle of it. As he watched the crowd enjoying the night, Keanu made a silent promise. No matter what came next, he wouldn't back down. Helping others wasn't just something he did, it was who he was. And nothing, not threats or powerful enemies, would change that.